The crack of Elias Hart's rifle split the dawn silence, and the bounty hunter crumpled into the dust, his fingers still clutching sketches of 2 Apache women. Blood pooled beneath the corpse as Elias's wooden leg scraped across his porch, his war-scarred face twisting with recognition. These weren't just any fugitives. The government wanted them dead, and now their hunter lay bleeding out in his yard. From his barn's shadows, 2 tall figures emerged, and everything Elias believed about justice, revenge, and survival was about to shatter. My friends, what happened next would ignite a firestorm across the Arizona territory that nobody saw coming. Follow this story to the end and comment your city below. I want to see how far these tales of the Old West can travel. The morning sun painted Elias Hart's ranch in shades of gold and crimson, but he barely noticed the beauty anymore. Not since Mary died, not since their boy Thomas was taken by Apache raiders 3 winters past. His wooden leg, a memento from Gettysburg, thudded against the porch boards as he bent to examine the dead bounty hunter more closely. "Damn fool," Elias muttered, rifling through the man's coat. "Creeping around my property at dawn. What did you expect?" His calloused fingers found a leather pouch, and what spilled out made his blood run cold. Government documents, relocation orders, and those sketches, 2 Apache women drawn with meticulous detail, one towering and regal, the other scarred with an eye patch. Below their portraits, a price that could buy half of Tucson wanted dead, $5,000 each. "That's quite a sum for 2 women," a calm voice said behind him. Elias spun his Colt, already half drawn, but froze. They stood there like something out of the very sketches he held. The tall one with intelligent eyes that seemed to read his soul. The scarred one with her hand resting on a knife hilt, ready for violence. "Easy, soldier," the tall one continued in perfect English. "We mean you no harm. I am Tala. This is my sister, Isoba." "You speak like you've been educated." Elias observed his gun still partially raised. "Missionaries," Tala replied with a bitter smile. "They taught me to read and write, thinking they'd save my soul. Instead, they gave me weapons they never intended: literacy, to read their lies, eloquence, to speak their language better than they do." Isoba said something sharp in Apache. Tala translated, "My sister says we should go. The gunshot will bring others." "Wait." Elias lowered his weapon fully. "You were in my barn." "Since midnight," Tala admitted. "We only wanted shelter for 1 night. We would have been gone before you woke, but—" She gestured at the corpse. "But this bastard forced my hand." Elias studied them, these women worth $10,000. "Why does the government want you dead?" The sisters exchanged glances. Isoba's scarred face twisted into something that might have been a smile or a snarl. She spoke rapidly in Apache, gesturing violently. "My sister is passionate about this subject," Tala translated diplomatically. "We have evidence. Captain Brackett and Senator Pike have been stealing Apache reservation supplies, food, blankets, medicine meant for our people, selling them for profit while children starve." "Brackett," Elias repeated. He knew that name, a cavalry officer with a reputation for brutality. His son tried to— Tala paused, choosing her words carefully. "He tried to take liberties with Isoba. She defended herself. The boy died." Isoba pulled back her eye patch, revealing the ruined socket beneath. She spoke a single word that needed no translation, the boy's name spoken like a curse. "So it's personal for Brackett," Elias said. "Everything is personal when it comes to killing Apaches." Tala replied. A dust cloud rose on the horizon and Elias's blood chilled. "Cavalry, moving fast. Into the house," he ordered. "Now." "We won't bring death to your door," Tala protested. "Too late for that." Elias grabbed the dead bounty hunter's arms. "Help me move him, quickly." Together they dragged the body behind the water trough. Elias's wooden leg made him clumsy, but adrenaline lent him speed. They'd barely made it inside when the thunder of hooves filled the yard. "The cellar," Elias hissed, pulling back a rug to reveal a trapdoor. Get down there and don't make a sound." "Why help us?" Tala asked, even as Isoba was already descending. "Because I know what it's like to lose everything to men in uniform who think their badges make them gods. Now go." The sisters vanished into darkness just as boots thundered onto his porch. Elias barely had time to replace the rug and settle into his chair, rifle across his lap, before the door burst open. Captain Hale Brackett stood framed in the doorway, tall and lean, with eyes like chips of slate. His uniform was trail dusty but impeccable, his bearing that of a man who enjoyed his authority. "Hart," Brackett said, without preamble. "We're tracking 2 Apache murderers. They were seen heading this direction." "Haven't seen any Apaches," Elias replied evenly, "but you're welcome to water your horses." Brackett stepped inside uninvited, his spurs jangling. 11 troopers followed, filling Elias's small home with the smell of sweat and leather. "Strange," Brackett mused, running a gloved finger along Elias's mantle. "A bounty hunter named Cole left Tucson yesterday, said he had a lead on our fugitives. His trail ends here." "Lots of trails end in the desert, Captain." Brackett's eyes narrowed. "You fought at Gettysburg." "I did. Under Grant, under whoever pointed me at rebels." Elias shifted, making sure Brackett saw the rifle. "War's over, Captain. Has been for years." "Not all wars," Brackett said softly. "Some wars never end. They just change battlefields." A young soldier, barely more than a boy, entered. "Captain, we found blood by the water trough. Fresh." Brackett smiled, a predator scenting prey. "Care to explain, Hart?" "Coyote got one of my chickens this morning. Had to put it down." "Show me the carcass." "Burned it. Disease prevention." The captain walked slowly around the room, his boots thundering on the wooden floor. Each step made Elias pray the sisters wouldn't shift in the cellar below. "You know the penalty for harboring fugitives?" Brackett asked. "I know the law requires evidence and due process. I am the law out here." "No." Elias stood, his wooden legs scraping. "You're a uniform with a gun. There's a difference." The tension crackled like lightning before a storm. One of the troopers shifted nervously, his hand moving to his sidearm. Then unexpectedly, another soldier entered, an Apache scout in cavalry dress. "Captain," the scout said. "Fresh tracks. 2 riders heading southeast toward the mountains. Less than an hour old." Brackett studied the scout running wolf, they called him, then turned back to Elias. "Convenient timing for these tracks to appear." Running wolf's expression never changed. "The trail is clear, sir. We should move before they gain more ground." For a long moment, Brackett stared at Elias, violence dancing in his eyes. Then he turned sharply. "Mount up," he barked. "We ride for the mountains." He paused at the door. "This isn't over, Hart. I'll be back with warrants, legal papers to tear this place apart board by board." "I'll be here," Elias replied. The cavalry thundered away, leaving dust and silence. Elias waited a full 10 minutes before pulling back the rug. "They're gone," he called down. The sisters emerged, Isoba first with her knife drawn, then Tala with something clutched to her chest, a leather journal. "That scout," Tala said wonderingly. "He lied for us." "Running Wolf," Elias said. "I've heard of him. They say he's the best tracker in the territory." "He's also my cousin," Tala revealed. "Though I haven't seen him in 5 years. I didn't know he'd joined them." "Maybe he joined them for reasons like this," Elias suggested. Tala opened the journal, showing pages of meticulous records. "This is what they want to bury. Every stolen shipment, every diverted supply train. Look, HBEP, Hale Brackett, Edmund Pike." Elias studied the ledger, his jaw tightening. "This is enough to destroy them both." "Only if it reaches the right hands," Tala said. "We were trying to get to Tucson, to a newspaper editor there who might publish it." "Brackett will be back by noon," Elias said, "with warrants and more men." "Then we leave now," Isoba said in accented English, surprising them both. "You speak English?" Elias asked. "When I must," she replied curtly. Elias made a decision that would change everything. There's an old Apache trail through Thunder Canyon. My wife's grandmother showed it to me years ago. She was half Apache herself. It's treacherous, but it'll get you to Tucson faster than the main routes. You would guide us? Tala asked. I'm done sitting here waiting to die a piece at a time. Elias grabbed his rifle and a pack. Besides, Brackett just made this personal. I don't like men who abuse their authority. You lost someone to Apaches, Tala observed. I can see it in your eyes. My son, 3 years ago. The words came hard. For months I wanted every Apache dead. Then I realized the ones who killed him were already dead, killed by the cavalry in retaliation. The cycle just keeps spinning unless someone steps off. Isoba spoke rapidly in Apache. Tala translated, She says you're either very wise or very foolish. Probably both. Elias checked his ammunition. We leave in 10 minutes. Pack light, move fast. As they prepared, Tala touched his arm. Why risk this for us? Elias looked at the ledger, then at the sketches of the sisters still lying on his table. Because I spent 3 years fighting for the Union, believing we were the good ones, believing in justice and equality. Then I come home and find the same corruption, the same powerful men feeding off the weak. Maybe I can't bring my son back, but I can stop other children from starving. That's not revenge, Isoba asked in her halting English. No, revenge would be killing Brackett and Pike in their sleep. This, he tapped the ledger, this is justice, making them face what they've done in the light of day. They were ready to leave when hoofbeats approached again. Elias tensed, but it was Running Wolf alone. The Apache scout dismounted his cavalry uniform, incongruous with his traditional hairstyle. Cousin, he said to Tala in Apache, then switched to English. I've bought you time, but not much. Brackett suspects something. Why help us? Tala asked. Because I've been feeding information to our people for 2 years, Running Wolf revealed. Every patrol route, every supply shipment. But this, he gestured to the ledger, this could end it properly, through law, not blood. Can you keep misdirecting them? Elias asked. For a few hours, I'll claim the trail splits divide the troops, but Brackett is smart. He'll figure it out. A few hours is all we need. Elias shouldered his pack. Thank you. Running Wolf looked at him with surprise. A white man thanking an Apache scout. These are strange times. Strange times call for strange alliances, Elias replied. As Running Wolf rode away, Elias led the sisters toward Thunder Canyon. The morning sun climbed higher and buzzards circled where they'd left the bounty hunter's body. We should bury him, Tala said. No time. The desert will claim him quick enough. They moved through the scrubland, Elias's wooden leg making each step deliberate but determined. The sisters matched his pace shadows in the harsh light. This canyon, Isoba asked. Why is it called Thunder? Flash floods, Elias explained. When the rains come, the water sounds like thunder, can kill a man in seconds. No rain today, Tala observed, studying the cloudless sky. No, but other dangers. Rattlesnakes, scorpions, and... Elias paused. Men who use it for things they don't want witnessed. They reached the canyon entrance, a narrow crack in the red rocks that looked barely wide enough for a horse. Ancient petroglyphs marked the stone's warnings, or welcomes. Elias had never been sure. Your wife's grandmother, Tala said. She must have trusted you greatly to show you this. Mary's family never accepted her mixed blood. Her grandmother raised her when her own parents wouldn't. She said Mary needed to know both sides of her heritage. Elias touched the rock face. I think she knew Mary would marry someone who could accept that heritage. And now you guide her enemies through her sacred path, Isoba said, not unkindly. I guide 2 women seeking justice through a path meant for those who need sanctuary. I think she'd approve. They entered the canyon and the temperature dropped immediately. The walls rose hundreds of feet on either side, carved by centuries of flood and wind. into fantastic shapes. Their footsteps echoed oddly, creating the illusion of followers. "Tell me about this evidence," Elias said as they walked. "How did you get it?" "I worked as a translator at Fort Bowie," Tala explained. "Brackett and Pike thought me too stupid to understand their schemes. They spoke freely in front of me. I copied everything." "For how long?" 6 months. Until Brackett's son arrived from back east. Spoiled, violent boy who thought Apache women were his for the taking. Her voice hardened. Isoba made sure he learned otherwise. Isoba touched her ruined eye. "He took this. I took his life. Fair trade." "Brackett doesn't see it that way," Elias noted. "Men like Brackett never see fairly when it comes to their own," Tala replied. A sound echoed through the canyon, hoofbeats moving fast. Multiple riders. "Down," Elias hissed, pulling them behind a cluster of boulders. 6 riders thundered past, not cavalry, but rough men in civilian clothes. Texas Rangers by their look, with badges and guns prominently displayed. "Those aren't Brackett's men," Elias whispered. "No," Tala agreed, "but they're hunting something." The Rangers passed, but moments later more hoofbeats echoed. This time it was cavalry, a squad of Brackett's men in hot pursuit of the Rangers. "What the hell?" Elias muttered. "The Rangers must have robbed an army payroll," Tala reasoned. "Now both groups are in the canyon." "Which means shooting is about to start," Isoba said, checking her rifle. As if her words were prophecy, gunfire erupted ahead. The canyon walls amplified the sound into rolling thunder. Screams and curses echoed back. "We need another route," Elias decided. "There's a cliff path, but with my leg." "We help," Isoba said simply. "You know way. We provide strength." They climbed, scrambling up a barely visible trail that switched back repeatedly. Elias's wooden legs scraped against stone, threatening to slip, but each time one of the sisters was there, steadying him. The gunfight below intensified. Halfway up, they reached a narrow ledge with a clear view of the canyon floor. The Rangers had taken cover behind rocks, exchanging fire with the cavalry. Bodies already littered the ground. "There," Isoba pointed. "Brackett." Indeed, the captain was there, directing his men with sharp gestures. Then his head turned upward, scanning the cliff faces, and his eyes found them. Even from this distance, Elias could see his recognition and rage. Brackett pointed and shouted. 3 troopers broke off from the fight, heading for the cliff trail. "Move!" Elias urged, but Isoba had unslung her rifle. With calm precision, she aimed and fired. One of the climbing troopers tumbled backward. She worked the lever, fired again. A second man fell. "Impressive shooting," Elias admitted. "Practice," Isoba replied, already moving. They reached a crevice in the cliff face, an opening that led into darkness. Elias hesitated. He hadn't been this way in years. "What is it?" Tala asked. "Cave system. Ancient. The grandmother called it the City of Echoes. Her people used it for ceremonies shelter, but it's easy to get lost." More shots from below. Brackett's voice carried up. $5,000 to the man who brings me Hart's head. Lost is better than dead. Tala decided. They plunged into darkness. Elias struck a match, the weak light revealing passages carved by water and possibly human hands. Symbols covered the walls, spirals, handprints, animal figures. "Sacred place," Isoba whispered, her voice carrying unusual reverence. "Stay close," Elias warned. "Some of these passages lead nowhere. Others lead to drops that'll kill you before you know you're falling." They moved deeper, following Elias's uncertain memory. The sound of pursuit echoed behind them. Boots, curses, more matches being struck. The cave system amplified and distorted every sound, making it impossible to tell how close their pursuers were. "Wait," Tala said, studying the wall symbols. "I know these, direction markers. This one means water, this one sky." Sky would mean an exit, Elias reasoned. Following the markers, they navigated the maze. Behind them, a scream echoed. Someone had found one of those fatal drops. The passages grew narrower, forcing them to squeeze through in single file. Elias's wooden leg caught repeatedly, slowing them. "Leave me," he said after the third time. "I'm slowing you down." "No," Isoba said firmly. "We go together or not at all." Finally, blessed daylight appeared ahead. They emerged onto a ledge overlooking Rattlesnake Creek 50 feet below. The only way down was a rope someone had left anchored to the rocks, old and frayed. "That won't hold all of us," Elias said. "One at a time, then," Tala decided. "Isoba first, she's the lightest." Isoba descended quickly, the rope creaking ominously. She made it safely, then Tala followed. The rope frayed more with each movement. By the time she reached bottom, several strands had snapped. "It won't hold me," Elias called down. "Jump!" Tala shouted. "The pool is deep enough." Gunfire erupted from the cave mouth. Brackett's men had found them. Elias turned, firing back into the darkness, buying seconds. "Jump, you fool!" Isoba screamed. A bullet creased Elias's shoulder, spinning him around. Off balance, he toppled off the ledge. The fall seemed to last forever, then cold water slammed into him like a fist. He went under his wooden leg, dragging him down his wounded shoulder, screaming. Strong hands grabbed him, pulling him up. The sisters dragged him to the bank as bullets struck the water around them. They ran, stumbling through the creek bed, using its twists for cover. "There," Tala pointed to a cluster of cottonwoods. "Cover." They dove behind the trees as more gunfire erupted. Elias, gasping, checked his ammunition, 3 bullets left. "This is it then," he said. "You two run, I'll hold them." "With 3 bullets?" Tala asked sarcastically. "I'll make them count." Or, Isoba said, pointing upstream, "We use that." A herd of wild horses had appeared, spooked by the gunfire, milling nervously near the water. Isoba gave a piercing whistle and the horses bolted right toward Brackett's emerging men. In the chaos of thundering hooves and panicking soldiers, the 3 fugitives slipped away into the desert. But Elias could barely walk now, his shoulder bleeding, his wooden leg waterlogged and failing. "Can't keep going," he gasped, collapsing behind a rock formation. "Then we make our stand here," Tala decided. "No, you have to get that ledger to Tucson. It's the only thing that matters." "You matter too," Tala said firmly. "Pretty words won't stop bullets." Elias checked his rifle. "But maybe I can buy you enough time. There's a trader named Vargas who runs supplies to Tucson. Find him. Tell him Elias Hart sent you. He owes me a favor from the war." Isoba was studying the terrain with a warrior's eye. "How many men does Brackett have left?" "Maybe 8 or 9 after that fight with the Rangers." "And he'll split them," Isoba reasoned. "Send some after us, keep some with him." She made a decision. "I take the ledger, ride fast to Tucson. Tala stays with you." "No," Tala protested. "Yes," Isoba said firmly in Apache, then switched to English. "You're the speaker, the reader. If the ledger needs explaining, I can't do it. But I can run, I can hide, I can reach Tucson." She was right, and they all knew it. Tala embraced her sister, whispering something in Apache. Isoba responded, then looked at Elias. "Don't die, white man, my sister likes you." Before anyone could respond, she was gone, vanishing into the desert like smoke. "Will she make it?" Elias asked. "If anyone can, Isoba can." Tala was already tearing strips from her shirt to bandage his shoulder. "Now let's see about keeping you alive." The sound of approaching horses made them both freeze, but instead of Brackett's harsh commands, they heard something unexpected singing, Spanish singing. "Vargas," Elias breathed. "That's Diego Vargas." The trader appeared around the rocks, leading a small caravan of mounted men. His weathered face split into a grin when he saw Elias. "Amigo, what are you doing out here bleeding like a stuck pig?" "Long story, Diego. Right now, we need help." Diego's eyes found Tala, took in her Apache features, but his smile never wavered. "Any enemy of Brackett's is a friend of mine. That bastard taxed my last shipment for protection. Come, we get you somewhere safe." As they loaded Elias onto a horse, Tala asked, "How did you know we were enemies of Brackett?" Diego laughed. because I saw him ride past an hour ago, looking like the devil was on his tail. Only time I've seen him that angry was when someone stood up to him. Besides, he winked, Running Wolf might have mentioned you needed help. Running Wolf. Elias was surprised. See, he finds me on the trail, says if I see you, I should help. Says it's important, something about justice finally coming. As they rode toward safety, Elias looked back at Thunder Canyon where smoke was rising from the continued battle between rangers and cavalry. He thought about cycles, violence begetting violence, hatred breeding hatred. Maybe, just maybe, they were about to break one of those cycles. Your shoulder needs a real doctor, Tala observed riding beside him. I've had worse. Your leg is broken too, the wooden one. I can carve another. She studied him. Why do you diminish your pain? Because acknowledging it doesn't make it go away. No, but denying it doesn't make you stronger, just more alone. Elias looked at her, this Apache woman who spoke with missionary-taught eloquence about truths that transcended language. My wife used to say something similar. She sounds wise. She was. She would have liked you, I think, appreciated someone who fights with words as well as weapons. And your son. Elias was quiet for a moment. Thomas was 12, just starting to ask the big questions about right and wrong, justice and injustice. He would have grown into a good man, I think, the kind who stands up for what's right, like his father. I'm no hero, Tala. No, she agreed. Heroes are for stories. You're something better, a decent man doing what needs doing. Diego's voice interrupted them. Riders coming. Everyone ready. But it wasn't Brackett. It was Isoba riding hard on a stolen cavalry horse, and she wasn't alone. Behind her rode a mixed group Apache warriors, Mexican vaqueros, and even a few white ranchers. The word is out, Isoba announced, pulling up in a cloud of dust. Running Wolf spread it through the Apache camps. Vargas's people spread it through the Mexican community. Even some white ranchers who've been cheated by Pike are joining. Joining what? Elias asked. The fight, Tala said, understanding. Not just to escape, but to end this. Pike has a ranch 20 miles from here, one of the white ranchers said. Fortress-like, but we know ways in. If we move tonight... This isn't what I planned, Elias said. Plans change, Tala replied. The question is, do we run and hide, letting them control the narrative, or do we take the fight to them with the truth? Elias looked at the assembled group, Apache Mexican, white united not by friendship, but by common cause, against corruption. It was the kind of alliance that shouldn't exist in the Arizona territory, yet here it was. What would your grandmother say? He asked Tala. She smiled. She would say that the mountain lion doesn't ask permission to hunt the hunters. Then we hunt, Elias decided. As they prepared for what would come next, a dust cloud appeared on the horizon. Brackett and his remaining men, no doubt. But now, instead of 3 fugitives, he would find something else entirely, a coalition that shouldn't exist, defending a truth that couldn't be buried. Whatever happens, Elias said to Tala, that ledger has to survive. The truth has to survive. It will, she promised. One way or another, the truth always surfaces. Like water in the desert, it finds a way. The sun was setting now, painting the desert in shades of blood and gold. Somewhere out there, Pike sat in his fortress ranch, thinking himself untouchable. Brackett rode with murder in his heart, believing his uniform made him righteous. They were both about to learn otherwise. The makeshift war council gathered in Diego's camp as darkness fell, and Elias could feel the weight of what they were about to attempt. His shoulder throbbed where Tala had cleaned and bandaged it, but the pain kept him sharp. Around the fire sat an impossible assembly Apache warriors who'd lost family to cavalry raids, Mexican traders who'd been cheated by Pike's monopolies, and white ranchers whose water rights had been stolen through forged documents. Pike's ranch is a fortress, said Jim Hannity. a grizzled rancher who'd lost his homestead to Pike's lawyers. 20-foot walls, guard towers, and at least 30 guns inside on any given night. 30 guns against our 40. Running Wolf calculated, having arrived an hour ago after finally abandoning his cavalry uniform. Not good odds for a direct assault. We don't need to assault, Tala interjected. We need to get inside, get the evidence out, and disappear before they know what happened. The evidence won't matter if we're all dead, Isoba said bluntly. Dead martyrs change nothing. Diego unrolled a rough map on the ground, weighing down the corners with stones. There's a service entrance here where the Mexican workers enter before dawn. My cousin Maria works in Pike's kitchen. She says the guards barely check the workers, they're too lazy, and assume no Apache would dare come so close. They'd be right normally, one of the Apache warriors said. This is suicide. No, Elias said, studying the map with his soldier's eye. This is tactics. We create a diversion here. He pointed to the main gate. Draw their attention and their guns. Meanwhile, a small group enters through the service door. And then what? We politely ask Pike to confess. Hannity scoffed. We take him, Running Wolf said quietly. Him and whatever documents he has. Without Pike, Brackett is just a rabid dog with no master. Kidnapping a senator will bring the entire army down on us, another rancher protested. The army's already coming, Tala pointed out. At least this way we have leverage. A young Apache warrior named Joseph Black Crow spoke up. My brother died from the sickness last winter. No medicine came to the reservation, though Pike claimed he'd sent 3 wagons full. I found out later he sold it to mining camps for 10 times the price. His voice hardened. I don't care if the army comes. I want him to answer for that. And he will, Elias promised. But we do this smart, or we all die for nothing. The sound of approaching horses made everyone tense, moving to weapons. But it was Diego's scout, a young Mexican boy named Pablo, riding hard. Senor Vargas Brackett's cavalry is making camp 5 miles south. But there's more. A Pinkerton detective arrived at Pike's ranch an hour ago, came from Tucson with 6 men. Pinkertons, Elias muttered. Pike's calling in professional guns. This changes things, Hannity said nervously. Pinkertons don't play by any rules. Neither do we not anymore, Isoba said. She looked at her sister. Remember what grandmother used to say, the wolf doesn't announce its hunt. Tala nodded slowly. We go tonight, before Brackett arrives, before Pike can fortify further. That's barely 3 hours to prepare, Diego protested. 3 hours is all we need, Elias said, his mind already working through the logistics. Diego, can your cousin get a message inside? Sigh, but it's dangerous for her. Tell her to leave a lamp burning in the kitchen window when the guards change shifts. That's our signal. He turned to Running Wolf. You know Brackett's signals. Everyone. Good. When we create the diversion, you fire 3 shots cavalry under attack signal. Half his men will ride out thinking Brackett needs reinforcement. Clever, Tala admitted. Use their own protocols against them. I learned from the best, Elias said, remembering his days under General Sherman. Now who goes inside? I do, Tala said immediately. I can read any documents we find. And I, Isoba added, where my sister goes, I go. You need someone who knows the house, Hannity said reluctantly. I've been inside for Pike's parties back when he pretended to be civilized. I know his study, his safe. Can you crack a safe? Elias asked. No, but I can blow one. Did some mining before ranching. Then you're in. Elias looked around the group. 4 of us inside. Everyone else creates chaos and disappears. No prolonged fighting, hit and run Apache style. You can barely walk, Tala pointed out. That shoulder needs rest. I can walk well enough to put a bullet where it counts. Joseph Black Crow stood. My warriors will create your diversion. We know how to make 10 men seem like 50. And my vaqueros will handle the horses, Diego added. Fresh mounts hidden at 3 points for escape. They spent the next 2 hours in preparation, each group understanding their role. Elias watched Tala cleaning her rifle, her movements precise and calm despite what they faced. "You could have run," he said quietly, "taken the ledger to Tucson, been safe." "Safe is an illusion for people like me," she replied. "Apache, woman, educated, I threaten their world just by existing. Their world needs threatening." She smiled slightly. "Spoken like a true revolutionary. Just a tired soldier who's seen too many good people ground down by bad men with power." Isoba approached carrying something wrapped in cloth. "For you," she said to Elias, unwrapping it. It was a wooden leg carved with Apache symbols. "Where did you—" "I made it. While you were planning." She shrugged. "You need to walk. This will hold better than your broken one." Elias was touched beyond words. The craftsmanship was beautiful, the wood strong and well-balanced. "Thank you. Thank me by not dying," Isoba said gruffly, but Elias caught the concern in her eye. They moved out as the moon rose, traveling in small groups to avoid detection. Pike's ranch appeared ahead like a medieval castle, transported to the desert-high adobe walls, lit torches and the shadows of guards on the ramparts. "There," Diego whispered, pointing, "the kitchen window, Maria's signal." Indeed, a single lamp burned in the window. The guards were changing. Joseph Black Crow and his warriors melted into the darkness on the opposite side of the compound. Minutes later, fire arrows began striking the wooden gates. Shouts erupted, guards running toward the attack. Running Wolf fired 3 precise shots, the cavalry signal. As predicted, the main doors burst open and riders galloped out, heading toward Brackett's supposed position. "Now," Elias hissed. They moved through shadows toward the service entrance. The door was unlocked, Maria's work. Inside, the kitchen was empty, but for the lingering smell of cooked meat. They could hear shouting from the main house, Pike's voice raised in anger. "His study is upstairs," Hannity whispered. "Second door on the right." They crept through servant corridors, avoiding the main hallways, where boots thundered back and forth. At the stairs, they froze. A Pinkerton stood guard at the top. Isoba didn't hesitate. Her knife flew silently, taking the man in the throat. He crumpled without a sound. They stepped over his body, Elias trying not to think about how easily she'd killed. Pike's study door was locked, but Hannity produced lockpicks. "Rancher by day, thief by necessity," he muttered, working the mechanism. The lock clicked open. Inside, Pike stood at his safe, frantically shoving documents into a bag. A Pinkerton detective stood beside him, a thin man with dead eyes and twin Colts. "Drop the weapons," the detective said calmly, his guns already drawn. They had no choice. Their guns clattered to the floor. "Senator Pike," Tala said formally, "we have evidence of your theft from the Apache reservation. Surrender now and face trial." Pike laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. You think Apache testimony means anything in a white court? The ledger isn't Apache testimony," Elias said. "It's your own records in your own hand." Pike's face paled. "You're bluffing." Tala pulled the ledger from her pack. "Every shipment, every diverted supply, every dead Apache child who starved while you got rich." "Give me that." Pike lunged forward. The Pinkerton stopped him. "Easy, Senator. Let me handle this." He studied them with those dead eyes. "You're worth quite a bit, 10,000 for the women, and you—" He looked at Elias. "Brackett wants you alive, says he has special plans." "Brackett's not here," Elias pointed out. "He will be soon. The fire's already controlled. Your diversion failed." Through the window, Elias could see he was right. The fire arrows had been extinguished and guards were returning to their posts. They were trapped. "There's always a deal to be made," the Pinkerton continued. "Give us the ledger, walk away. You disappear, we forget this happened." "And the Apache continue to starve," Tala said coldly. "Not my concern." "It should be," Isoba said, and Elias noticed she was smiling, never a good sign. "Because you're standing on a bomb." Everyone froze. Hannity slowly raised his hand, showing a small detonator. "Mining explosives in my pack. Enough to turn this room into memory. The question is, do we all die for your greed, or does everyone walk away? You're bluffing, the Pinkerton said, but sweat beaded on his forehead. Apache women with nothing to lose, a rancher who lost everything, a crippled soldier with a death wish. Hannity laughed bitterly. What exactly do we have to live for, except seeing justice done? Pike was panicking now. Shoot them, and risk setting off the explosives? I don't think so. The Pinkerton was calculating, those dead eyes flickering between them. The door burst open. Brackett stood there, uniform torn, face twisted with rage. Hart, you son of a... He saw the situation, the Mexican standoff. What is this? Your employer's being held hostage, the Pinkerton said dryly, by a bunch of idealists with explosives. Where's my son's killer? Brackett's eyes found Isoba. You took my boy. Your boy took my eye trying to rape me, Isoba replied calmly. He died like the coward he was crying for his mother. Brackett raised his pistol, his hand shaking with fury. The Pinkerton grabbed his arm. You fire in here, we all die. I don't care, I do. The detective's voice was ice. And so does the senator, right, Pike? Pike was sweating profusely. Everyone just calm down. We can work this out. Yes, we can, Tala said. You confess, publicly, every theft, every diverted shipment. You resign from the Senate and face trial. That's not happening, Pike snarled. Then we all die here, Elias said simply. And the ledger still makes it to the newspapers. We've made copies, sent them with riders to Tucson, Phoenix, even San Francisco. Your choice, Senator. Die now as a criminal or live to face justice. It was a bluff. They'd made no copies, but Pike didn't know that. The sound of gunfire erupted outside. Not Apache arrows this time, but serious shooting. Through the window, they could see cavalry uniforms, but fighting each other. What the hell? Brackett moved to the window. Running Wolf's voice carried from below. Captain Brackett, by order of Colonel Morrison from Fort Grant, you're under arrest for theft of government property. Morrison. Brackett went white. How did he? I've been sending him reports for 2 years. Running Wolf called up. Everything you've done. He's here with 40 men from the 2nd Cavalry. It's over, Captain. Brackett turned on Pike with murderous eyes. You said Morrison was handled. You said he was paid off. He was, Pike protested. Apparently not enough, the Pinkerton observed. He lowered his weapons. Gentlemen, ladies, I'm a practical man. My contract was to protect the senator, but not from federal arrest. I believe my services are no longer required. He holstered his Colts and walked out, stepping carefully around Hannity and his supposed explosives. Coward, Pike shouted after him. Professional, the detective corrected without looking back. Brackett was cornered now, looking between them and the window, where Colonel Morrison's men were taking position. This isn't over. You think one colonel changes anything? The whole system is built on men like you believing you're untouchable. Elias interrupted. But you're not. You're just a man with a gun, and there's always someone with more guns. Speaking of which, Isoba said, picking up her rifle from where she'd dropped it, you should probably surrender now. Brackett's hand tightened on his pistol. For a moment, Elias thought he might actually fire explosives, or not. Then boots thundered in the hallway, and Colonel Morrison himself appeared, a stern, gray-bearded officer who looked like he'd ridden hard to get here. Captain Brackett, Senator Pike, you're both under arrest. Charges include theft of government property, conspiracy, and murder. His eyes found the Apache sisters. Ladies, I apologize for what you've endured. Running Wolf has told me everything. Words are easy, Colonel, Tala said. What about actions? The supplies will be returned to the reservation immediately, and I'll personally ensure you both receive pardons for any alleged crimes. Alleged? Isoba's hand tightened on her rifle. Poor choice of words. For any acts of self-defense against criminal assault. Brackett finally snapped. He raised his pistol not at the sisters, but at Pike. You destroyed everything, my career, my son's memory. The shot was impossibly loud in the enclosed space, But it wasn't Brackett's gun that fired, but Isoba's rifle cracked and Brackett's pistol flew from his hand, along with 2 of his fingers. He screamed, clutching his mangled hand. "I could have killed you," Isoba said quietly. "Remember that mercy when you think of your son." Morrison's men rushed in, restraining both Brackett and Pike. The senator was babbling about his connections, his power, how they'd all pay. Brackett just stared at his ruined hand in shock. "The ledger?" Morrison said to Tala. "I'll need that as evidence." She handed it over without hesitation. "Make copies, multiple copies. Some evidence has a way of disappearing." "Not on my watch." Morrison's tone suggested he meant it. "Mr. Hart, these ladies are under your protection." Elias almost laughed at the irony, him protecting them. "We're protecting each other, Colonel." "Good. You'll all need to testify at the trial. I can provide quarters at Fort Grant." "No," Tala said firmly. "We'll stay with friends, but we'll testify." Morrison nodded. "Running Wolf will coordinate. He's been reinstated with full honors and back pay." As the soldiers led Pike and Brackett away, Hannity finally relaxed, pulling his hand from his pack. "Thank God, my hand was cramping something awful." "The explosives?" Elias asked. Hannity grinned, pulling out a handful of baking soda wrapped in cloth. "Maria, from the kitchen, figured it might sell the bluff." Isoba actually laughed the first time Elias had heard it. It transformed her scarred face into something almost beautiful. They made their way out of the ranch as Morrison's men secured the compound. The Apache warriors had vanished into the night, their job done. Diego's vaqueros were already gone with the horses. The alliance had dissolved as quickly as it had formed, but its work was complete. "What now?" Tala asked as they stood in the courtyard. "Now we make sure the truth gets told," Elias said. "Every newspaper, every town hall. Pike and Brackett were just symptoms. The disease runs deeper." "You sound like you're planning a war," Hannity observed. "Maybe I am. A different kind of war, one fought with words and laws instead of bullets." "The bullets might be easier," Isoba said. A rider approached young Pablo Diego's scout. "Senor Hart, or Senor Vargas says to come to his sister's rancho. You'll be safe there. And there's a newspaper man from Tucson who wants to hear your story." As they mounted horses, Morrison's men had provided Tala moved close to Elias. "Your wife and son, would they be proud of what we did tonight?" Elias thought of Mary, her fierce sense of justice, her grandmother's wisdom. He thought of Thomas always asking about right and wrong. "I think they would. For the first time in 3 years, I think they would." They rode into the desert night, leaving Pike's fortress of corruption behind. Ahead lay trial's testimony, the slow, grinding wheels of justice. There would be threats, attempts at bribery, maybe even violence from those who wanted the old ways maintained. But tonight they'd won something. Not just victory, but proof that Apache, Mexican, and white could stand together against injustice. It was a small crack in the wall of prejudice and hatred that divided the territory. As they reached a rise, Elias looked back at Pike's ranch, now swarming with federal troops. Smoke still rose from the burned gates where Apache fire arrows had struck. It looked like a symbol of something ending. "No," Tala said, seeming to read his thoughts. "Not ending, beginning." She was right. This was just the first battle in a longer war, one fought in courtrooms and newspapers, in the hearts and minds of people who'd been taught to hate and fear each other. Running Wolf caught up to them now, wearing Apache clothing instead of his cavalry uniform. "Morrison wants me to establish a new position liaison between the Army and the Apache. Real communication, not just orders." "Will you trust him?" Isoba asked. "I'll trust, but verify," Running Wolf replied. "And if they betray that trust, we'll be ready," Tala finished. They reached Diego's sister's rancho as dawn broke. Luisa Vargas was a formidable woman who took one look at Elias's wounds and immediately began barking orders for hot water and medical supplies. The newspaper man was already there, a thin, nervous fellow named Javier Morales, who ran a Spanish-language paper. They killed Reynolds, he said immediately. The English paper editor shot him last night when he wouldn't stop printing stories about the missing supplies. Then we make sure his death meant something, Elias said. Every detail, every crime, print it all. It'll make you targets, Morales warned. We already are, Tala pointed out. At least now we're targets with a voice. As Luisa tended Elias's shoulder cleaning and restitching Tala's field dressing, he watched the sisters talking with Morales, carefully going through every detail of Pike's corruption. Isoba had produced another ledger, this one from Brackett's own office, stolen during the chaos. You had time to rob Brackett's office? Elias asked, amazed. While everyone was watching the fire, Isoba shrugged. Seemed wasteful not to. The documents were damning payments to judges, bribes to suppliers, even plans to provoke an Apache uprising to justify seizing more land. This is bigger than just Pike and Brackett, Morales breathed. This goes all the way to Washington. Then that's where we aim, Tala said firmly. A commotion outside drew their attention. Hannity burst in. Riders coming, lots of them. Everyone grabbed weapons, but it wasn't an attack. It was Apache, dozens of them, led by Chief Nietzsche, himself Cochise's son. They dismounted in the courtyard and Nietzsche entered the house. He spoke in Apache to Tala and Isoba, then turned to Elias. You stood with my people against the whites' injustice. This is noted. This is remembered. I stood for justice, period, Elias replied. Apache, Mexican, white, we all bleed the same color. Nietzsche studied him. Your woman was part Apache. Her grandmother was, yes. Then you understand, we are not enemies by nature, only by circumstance. He placed something on the table, a war lance decorated with eagle feathers. This was my father's. He would want a warrior for justice to carry it. Elias was stunned. I can't accept this. You must. It's not a gift, it's a responsibility. Carry it to remind yourself and others that peace is possible, but only through strength and truth. As quickly as they'd come, the Apache departed, leaving everyone in amazement. You realize what just happened, Diego said. Nietzsche just declared you a friend of the Apache. That's better protection than any army. It's also a target on my back from everyone who hates them, Elias pointed out. You already had that, Tala said. Now you have allies to watch that back. Morales was scribbling frantically. This story, it's unprecedented. Apache, Mexican, and white Americans working together to expose government corruption. It'll change everything. Or change nothing, Hannity said pessimistically. The powerful have ways of staying powerful. Not this time, a new voice said from the doorway. They turned to find a well-dressed man with a federal marshal's badge. Marshal Thomas Garrett, Colonel Morrison sent me. I'm to ensure the prisoners make it to trial and the witnesses stay alive to testify. One marshal, Isoba scoffed. One marshal and the dozen deputies outside, Garrett corrected. Plus whatever help Mr. Hart's new Apache friends might provide. Morrison is serious about this. The president himself wants these trials to succeed. Why? Elias asked suspiciously. Because Senator Pike has enemies in Washington who are delighted to see him fall, and because the Apache situation has become a national embarrassment. Making examples of Pike and Brackett might prevent a war that would cost thousands of lives. So we're pawns in a political game, Tala said bitterly. No, Garrett said firmly. You're witnesses to crimes that demand justice. The politics are just fortunate alignment. Over the next hours, as Luisa fed them and tended wounds they planned, the trial would be in Tucson in 2 weeks. Pike and Brackett would have the best lawyers money could buy. The witnesses would need protection and their testimony would need to be unassailable. I'll help, Hannity declared. I know others Pike cheated. We'll all testify. The Apache will speak too, Running Wolf said. Chief Nietzsche has agreed to bring elders who can describe the starvation, the deaths. And I'll make sure the story stays alive in the papers, Morales promised. Spanish and English. They can't silence all of us. As the sun set on their first day of relative safety, Elias stood on the porch, his new wooden leg holding steady. Tala joined him, moving silently as always. You're thinking of your family, she observed. Always. But also, this feels like something larger than just justice for past crimes. It feels like we're trying to build something new. A world where Apache and white can work together, where Mexican and American are equals. She shook her head. That's a dream, Elias. Maybe, but what's the alternative? More killing, more hatred passed to the next generation. She was quiet for a moment. My grandmother once told me that change comes like the river carving the canyon, slowly, imperceptibly, but inevitably. Perhaps we're just a few drops of water. Then let's be the drops that start the flood, Elias said. Isoba appeared carrying 3 cups of Louisa's strong coffee. Such poetry from a soldier, she teased, but her tone was warm. They stood together, unlikely allies, watching the stars emerge. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, legal maneuvers, death threats, attempts to discredit them. But tonight they'd proven something important. Justice wasn't about strength or numbers or even being right. It was about standing up, speaking truth, and finding others willing to stand with you, even if those others came from peoples you'd been taught to hate or fear. What will you do after the trial? Tala asked Elias. He thought about his burned ranch, his empty life before these 2 sisters had crashed into it. I don't know, can't go back to what was. Then come forward with us, Isoba suggested. There are other Pikes, other brackets. The fight doesn't end with one trial. You're suggesting I become some kind of investigator, fighter for justice. Why not? Tala smiled. You're already halfway there. Might as well finish the journey. Before he could respond, Running Wolf appeared, his face grave. We have a problem. Brackett escaped. What? How? During the transfer to Fort Grant, his men loyalists Morrison didn't know about ambushed the convoy. 4 soldiers dead. Brackett's gone, probably heading for Mexico. He'll come for us, Isoba said certainly. He won't let his son's death go unavenged. Let him come, Elias said, surprising himself with his calm. We faced him once, we'll do it again. This time he won't underestimate us, Tala warned. He'll bring everything he has. Then we'd better be ready. Elias looked at his unlikely partners. All of us together. As if in agreement, a coyote howled in the distance, its cry echoing across the desert. It was answered by another, then another, until the night filled with their chorus. The desert spirits are restless, Isoba observed. Good, Elias replied. So are we. The news of Brackett's escape changed everything. Marshal Garrett immediately doubled the guards around Louisa's rancho, but Elias knew it wouldn't be enough. Brackett had spent years building loyalty among certain cavalry units, men who shared his hatred of Apaches and anyone who helped them. We need to move, Garrett said, pacing the main room like a caged wolf. Staying in one place makes us targets. Running makes us look guilty, Tala countered, her voice steady despite the tension. We have testimony to prepare, evidence to organize. Hard to testify with a bullet in your head, the marshal replied bluntly. Isoba was at the window, her one good eye scanning the darkness. Riders, she said suddenly, coming fast. Everyone grabbed weapons, but it was Running Wolf returning from his scouting mission, and his face told them everything. Brackett's gathered about 20 men. They're camped at Skeleton Ridge, 15 miles north, and there's worse news, Pike's dead. What? Elias felt the blood drain from his face. How? Throat cut in his cell. Guards claim they saw nothing. Running Wolf's expression was grim. Without Pike, the trial falls apart. He was the main defendant. Brackett, Tala said with certainty. He had Pike killed to eliminate the witness who could implicate others. Or Pike's friends in Washington arranged it, Garrett suggested. Dead men tell no tales about who else was involved in the corruption. Morales, the newspaper man, had gone pale. If they killed a senator to silence him, what chance do we have? The same chance we had before, Elias said firmly. We have the ledgers, the documents. The evidence speaks even if Pike can't. Evidence can be discredited without witnesses to verify it, Garrett pointed out. And with Brackett free, he'll be working to eliminate everyone who can testify. A shot rang out, shattering the window inches from Isoba's head. She dropped, rolling away as more bullets peppered the wall. "They're here!" someone shouted. The rancho erupted in gunfire. Garrett's deputies returned fire from their positions, but muzzle flashes in the darkness showed they were outnumbered. Brackett had brought more than 20 men, maybe twice that. "The barn!" Diego shouted. "We can make a stand there." "No," Elias said, his mind racing through tactical options. That's what Brackett expects. He knows standard defensive positions. He turned to Running Wolf. "Your people's signal fires. Can you call them?" Running Wolf nodded, already moving. He grabbed a torch and ran to the roof, dodging bullets. Moments later, a pillar of smoke rose into the night sky, lit from below by the torch. He added green branches, making the smoke thick and visible. "That'll bring every Apache within 10 miles, Tala said. "But will they come in time?" Another window shattered. One of Garrett's deputies cried out, clutching his shoulder. Louisa immediately went to him, staying low, pressing cloth to the wound. "We need to buy time," Elias said. He looked at Isoba. "Remember what you did with those horses at the creek?" She smiled grimly. "Diego, your sister keeps horses." "In the South Corral," Louisa called out while tending the wounded man. 15 head. "I need fire arrows," Isoba said. "Or burning brands." Hannity was already moving, grabbing oil lamps. "This'll do." He started wrapping cloth around arrow shafts, soaking them in lamp oil. The gunfire intensified. Brackett's voice carried across the night. "Hart, send out the Apache bitches and you can live. This isn't your fight." "Everything's my fight now, Brackett," Elias shouted back. "You made sure of that when you burned my ranch. Your ranch burned because you harbored murderers. My ranch burned because you're a coward who attacks empty buildings." More shots closer now. Brackett's men were advancing, using the darkness and outbuildings for cover. One of them made it to the chicken coop, only 20 yards from the house. Garrett put him down with a precise shot. "Ready," Isoba said, holding a flaming arrow. She moved to a back window, drew her bow, and let fly. The arrow arced through the night toward the corral, then another and another. The horses, terrified by the fire arrows landing near them, broke through the corral fence in a thunder of hooves. But instead of scattering, Isoba's sharp whistle directed them straight toward Brackett's advancing men. Screams and curses filled the night as 15 panicked horses plowed through the attackers' lines. Men dove and their formation shattered. "Now," Elias commanded, "while they're disrupted." They poured fire into the scattered attackers. Several went down, others retreated to better cover, but Elias knew it was temporary. Brackett had too many men. Then from the darkness came a sound that chilled blood, Apache war cries, not from one direction, but 3. Naichi had received Running Wolf's signal and responded with shocking speed. "About damn time," Garrett muttered, reloading. The attacking force suddenly found themselves caught between the defenders in the rancho and Apache warriors attacking from multiple directions. The battle turned into chaos. Some of Brackett's men tried to flee, only to run into more Apaches. Others tried to fort up in the outbuildings, but found themselves trapped. "Cease fire," Elias called to the defenders. "Let the Apache finish this." In truth, the finishing was more rout than battle. Many of Brackett's men threw down their weapons rather than face Apache warriors in the darkness. Within minutes, the attack had completely collapsed. But Brackett himself was nowhere to be found. "He's inside," Tala said with sudden certainty. "He used the attack as cover. He's in the house." They turned, weapons raised, scanning the shadows of their own refuge. A board creaked upstairs, then footsteps trying to be quiet but betrayed by the old wooden floors. "My grandmother's room," Louisa whispered. There's a window that overlooks this room. He could shoot us all from there." Elias moved toward the stairs, but Isoba stopped him. "My hunt," she said quietly, and before anyone could protest, she'd melted into the shadows. They waited tense seconds, stretching into eternity. A crash from upstairs, a gunshot, the sound of struggle, then silence. Brackett appeared at the top of the stairs, his pistol pressed to Isoba's head, using her as a shield. Blood ran from a gash on his cheek where she'd obviously fought him. "Everyone drops their weapons," he snarled, "or I paint the wall with her brains. You do that, you're dead before her body hits the floor." Garrett set his rifle steady. "Maybe, but she'll still be dead." Brackett's eyes were wild, desperate. "This is all wrong. We were bringing civilization to savages. We were doing God's work." "You were stealing food from children," Tala said coldly. "Don't dress your greed in righteousness. They're Apache. They're not even human." Brackett's gun hand was shaking. "My boy is dead because of these animals." "Your boy is dead because he was a rapist," Isoba said calmly, despite the gun at her head. "Just like his father." Brackett hit her with the pistol butt, opening a cut on her temple. "Shut up, Captain Brackett," a new voice said from behind him. Dr. Perkins, the fort surgeon who'd helped Elias escape, stepped out of the shadows upstairs. "Put the gun down." "Doctor, what are you doing here?" "What I should have done months ago, standing up to you." Perkins moved closer. "I've seen the bodies, Captain, not just from battles, from your interrogations, your punishments. I've stayed quiet too long." "You're just another traitor," Brackett spat. "You all are." "No," Elias said, stepping forward despite the danger. "We're the opposite of traitors. We're trying to save this territory from men like you who would burn it all down for your hate." "Stay back." Brackett pressed the gun harder against Isoba's head, but Isoba had been waiting for this moment of distraction. She went completely limp, her dead weight pulling Brackett off balance. As he tried to adjust, she struck backward with her elbow, hitting him in the solar plexus. The gun went off deafeningly loud, but the shot went wild, hitting the ceiling. Tala's rifle cracked. Brackett's gun flew from his hand. He stood there staring at his mangled fingers, the same hand Isoba had wounded at Pike's ranch. Then his legs gave out, and he collapsed, cradling his twice-ruined hand. "I could have killed you," Tala said, echoing her sister's earlier words. "Remember that when you stand trial." "Real." Brackett laughed bitterly. "You think this changes anything? You think killing me or Pike stops what's coming? There are dozens like us, hundreds. The Apache will be swept away and collaborators like you will hang as traitors." "Maybe," Elias said, "but not today and not tomorrow. And every day we stop, it is another day for things to change." Marshal Garrett moved to arrest Brackett, but the captain had one more card to play. From his boot, he pulled a hidden derringer, a two-shot holdout gun, but he didn't aim it at them. He put it to his own temple. "My son is waiting," he said. "Don't." Dr. Perkins lunged forward, but the shot rang out before anyone could stop it. Brackett crumpled, his blood spreading across Louisa's floor. "Howard's way out," Garrett muttered, but there was no satisfaction in it. Isoba touched the cut on her temple, looking at the blood on her fingers. "It's finished then." "No," Elias said. "He was right about one thing. There are others like him. This was just the beginning." Naichi entered the house, surveying the scene. His warriors had rounded up the surviving attackers, about a dozen men, mostly wounded, all terrified. "What should we do with them?" the Apache chief asked. "They stand trial," Garrett said firmly. "Legal justice, not vengeance." "Your justice failed to hold Brackett or Pike," Naichi pointed out. "It's imperfect," Elias admitted, "but it's better than eternal blood feuds. These men will testify about who hired them, who else is involved. We follow the corruption wherever it leads." Naichi considered this. "You have one moon cycle. If your justice fails again, Apache justice follows." It was both a threat and a promise, and everyone knew Naichi meant it. As dawn broke, they surveyed the aftermath. 3 of Garrett's deputies were wounded but would survive. Several of the attackers were dead, more wounded. The rancho was riddled with bullet holes but still standing. "We can't stay here," Louisa said practically. "They know where we are now." "Fort Grant," Colonel Morrison said, arriving with a full cavalry company. He looked at Brackett's body with no emotion. "You'll be safe there until the trial." "A fort full of soldiers who might be loyal to Brackett?" Tala asked skeptically. "A fort full of soldiers under my command," Morrison corrected. "I've weeded out Brackett's sympathizers. You have my word on your safety." "Your word hasn't meant much to Apache in the past," Isoba said. "No, it hasn't, but I'm trying to change that." Morrison looked at Running Wolf. "That's why I need men like him who can bridge both worlds, and why I need this trial to succeed to show that law can triumph over corruption." They spent the morning preparing to move. Morales had already written his story, sending writers to carry it to every newspaper in the territory. The headline was inflammatory but accurate. "Senator murdered to hide conspiracy war hero, and Apache sisters fight for justice." "That'll stir things up," Garrett observed. "Good," Elias said. "The more public attention, the harder it is for them to make us disappear." As they loaded wagons for the journey to Fort Grant, Tala approached Elias. "Brackett's dead, Pike's dead. The evidence might not be enough without them." "Then we find more evidence. There are records, transactions, other people involved. We dig until we find it all." "That could take years." "Then it takes years." Elias tested his Apache-carved wooden leg, finding his balance. "I've got nothing but time now." Isoba corrected, joining them. "We have time. This fight is ours, too." Dr. Perkins approached, carrying his medical bag. "I'll be testifying, too. I have records. Every Apache who died from lack of medical supplies that were supposedly delivered. Every soldier who was disciplined for speaking out. Brackett was careful, but not careful enough." "Why risk yourself?" Tala asked. "You could stay quiet, stay safe." "Because staying quiet is what allowed this to happen. Evil flourishes when good men do nothing, and I've done nothing for too long." The convoy formed up Morrison's cavalry, providing escort wagons carrying the witnesses and evidence. As they prepared to leave, Running Wolf rode up with urgent news. "Scouts report another force moving from the south. Not military, looks like hired guns from Mexico." "How many?" Morrison demanded. "Maybe 30, well armed." "Pike's allies," Garrett reasoned. "They want to destroy the evidence before it reaches court." "Then we fight," Morrison said simply. "My men are ready." "No," Elias said, an idea forming. "We split up. The evidence goes one way with heavy guard, looking like the main convoy. The witnesses go another way, quiet and fast." "That's risky," Morrison pointed out. "Everything's risky now, but they want the documents more than us. Without evidence, testimony is just words." "Unless," Tala said, understanding, "we make copies first. Multiple copies sent different directions." They spent 2 hours frantically copying the most damning documents. Louisa and her servants helped everyone writing until their hands cramped. By the time they finished, they had 5 sets of the most critical evidence. "One goes with Morrison's main force," Elias planned. "One with us. The others go by separate riders to Tucson, Phoenix, and Santa Fe." "I'll take Santa Fe," Hannity volunteered. "I know the trail, and I've got friends there." "Phoenix for me," Diego said. "My trading contacts will ensure it reaches the territorial governor. And I'll ensure the Tucson copy reaches every newspaper," Morales promised. As they prepared to separate, Naichi offered unexpected support. "My warriors will shadow your group," he told Elias. "The ones carrying the people, not the papers. Documents can be replaced, witnesses cannot." "Thank you," Elias said, meaning it. "Don't thank me yet. This alliance is fragile. If your justice fails, if the trial is corrupted, my people will handle things our way." "Understood." The groups separated as the sun reached its zenith. Morrison's main force headed east with great fanfare drawing attention. The witnesses, Elias, the sisters, Dr. Perkins, and a small guard led by Garrett took a northern route through rough country. They'd barely gone 5 miles when smoke signals appeared on the southern horizon. The Mexican mercenaries had taken the bait following Morrison's convoy. "Good," Garrett said. "Now we just have to survive the journey to Fort Grant." "That's a lot of just," Isoba observed. They rode hard through the afternoon following trails that barely deserved the name. Elias's wooden leg ached from the constant jarring, but he said nothing. The sisters rode like they were born to it, which they essentially were. Dr. Perkins struggled but persevered. As evening approached, Running Wolf appeared from nowhere, as was his talent. Trouble. Some of the mercenaries split off. "They're following our trail." "How many?" Garrett asked. 6, maybe 8, moving fast." "We can't outrun them," Perkins said. "Not in this terrain." "Then we don't run," Elias decided. "We ambush." They found a suitable spot, a narrow canyon with good cover. As the sun set, they positioned themselves and waited. The pursuers arrived just as darkness fell, riding carelessly confident in their numbers and firepower. The ambush was swift and decisive. Garrett and his deputies opened fire from elevated positions. Isoba's bow sang silent and deadly. Tala's rifle cracked with precision. Elias picked his shots carefully, making each one count. In less than a minute it was over. 5 mercenaries down, the others fleeing into the darkness. "They'll report our position," Garrett worried. "Let them," Elias said. "By the time they bring reinforcements, we'll be long gone." They rode through the night, exhaustion pulling at them, but as dawn broke, Fort Grant's walls appeared ahead. They'd made it, but their relief was short-lived. A rider was waiting at the gates with urgent news. The trial judge had been murdered in Tucson, shot through his window while eating breakfast. "They're eliminating everyone connected to the trial," Garrett said grimly. "Then we need a new judge," Elias said. "One they can't corrupt or kill." "I know one," Morrison said. "Judge Samuel Carter from California. He's already on his way. I telegraphed him yesterday. He'll be here in 3 days." "Can we keep him alive that long?" Tala asked. "We'd better," Elias replied, "because if we can't, this whole thing falls apart." As they entered Fort Grant, Elias noticed something different. Alongside the regular cavalry were Apache scouts, Mexican traders, and even some white ranchers, all there to show support. The story had spread, and people were choosing sides. "Look at that," Dr. Perkins marveled. "When have you ever seen such a gathering?" "Never," Isoba said quietly, "and maybe never again. But today we stand together." The fort's stockade had been converted into a makeshift courtroom. The evidence was secured in Morrison's own quarters under heavy guard, and somewhere out there their enemies were regrouping, planning their next move. 3 days, Elias said. "We just have to hold for 3 days." "A lot can happen in 3 days," Tala observed. She was right. But as Elias looked at their unlikely alliance, Apache, Mexican, white, all united in pursuit of justice, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years: hope. The real fight was about to begin. The first night in Fort Grant passed without incident, but Elias couldn't shake the feeling they were sitting in a trap. He stood on the wall at dawn watching the desert, when Tala joined him with 2 cups of coffee. "You didn't sleep," she observed. "Neither did you." "I kept thinking about what Brackett said, dozens like him, hundreds maybe. We're fighting a river with a cup." "Rivers can be dammed," Elias said. "One stone at a time." A commotion at the gates drew their attention. A single rider approached under a white flag, a woman in expensive clothes, her face hidden by a veil. Morrison himself went to meet her. "Mrs. Pike," the colonel said, surprise in his voice. "I wasn't expecting—" "My husband is dead, Colonel, murdered to keep him silent." She lifted her veil, revealing a face marked by tears but hardened by determination. "I know what he was, I know what he did, and I have something you need." She produced a leather satchel from her saddlebags. Edmund kept copies of everything. Letters from Washington payment records, names of everyone involved. He was paranoid about his partners betraying him. "Why bring this to us?" Morrison asked suspiciously. "Because they killed him anyway. After everything he did for them, they cut his throat like a common criminal." Her voice turned bitter. "I want them to burn for it. All of them." Garrett examined the documents, his eyes widening. This names half the territorial government. Federal judges, armies, suppliers, even people in the president's cabinet. "Edmund was thorough," Mrs. Pike said. "He believed documentation was power." "It's also a death sentence," Elias said, joining them. "They'll kill us all to keep this quiet." "Then you'd better be ready to fight," she replied, "because they're coming. I passed a group of riders 20 miles south, at least 50 men. They'll be here by nightfall." 50? Morrison paled. "I only have 30 men I trust completely. Plus my warriors," Nietzsche said, appearing as if from air. The Apache chief had been camped outside the fort with 20 of his best fighters. "But even together we're outnumbered." "Numbers aren't everything," Isoba said. She was studying the fort's layout with a tactical eye. "This place was built to withstand siege. We use that." Dr. Perkins emerged from the infirmary, his face grave. "We have another problem. Judge Carter's escort was attacked 10 miles from here. He's alive but wounded. They're bringing him in now." "Wounded how badly?" Morrison demanded. "Shot through the shoulder. He'll live, but he can't preside over a trial like this." "Then we're finished," Garrett said, "without a judge." "I'll do it," a voice said from behind them. They turned to find an elderly Apache man in traditional dress. "I am Joseph Crow Dog, trained in white man's law at the missionary school. Tribal judge for my people for 20 years. An Apache can't preside over a white man's trial," Morrison said, though he looked uncomfortable saying it. "Why not?" Tala challenged. "He knows law. He knows justice." "Because no white jury would accept it," Garrett said practically. "Then don't use a white jury," Elias suggested. "Use a mixed one, Apache Mexican white, equal representation." "That's never been done," Morrison protested. "Lots of things have never been done until someone does them." "Mrs. Pike said sharply, "My husband is dead, Colonel. How many more have to die before we try something different?" Running Wolf rode in hard dust covering him. "They're closer than we thought, maybe 3 hours out, and there's more telegraph lines have been cut. We're isolated." "They planned this well," Morrison admitted. "So we plan better," Elias said. "Mrs. Pike, can you ride?" "I rode here, didn't I? I mean really ride, hard and fast. I was raised on a ranch, Mr. Hart. I can ride." "Good. Take the most damning documents. Ride north to Camp Apache. They have a telegraph that runs a different line. Get word to the newspapers, the governor, everyone." "That's 60 miles through rough country," Morrison said. "I'll make it." Mrs. Pike's determination was steel. "They killed my husband to silence him. I won't let them silence me." "I'll send 2 of my warriors with her," Nietzsche offered. "They know trails white men have never seen." As Mrs. Pike prepared to leave, she pulled Elias aside. "Edmund kept a journal, personal things, but also insurance. It's hidden in our house in Tucson, inside the piano. If something happens to me, get it." "Nothing's going to happen." "Don't lie to me, Mr. Hart. We both know the odds." She squeezed his hand. "Just promise me they'll pay for what they did." "They will, one way or another." She rode out with the Apache escorts, and Elias prayed she'd make it. They needed every advantage they could get. The fort erupted into preparations. Morrison's men fortified positions, while Nietzsche's warriors took high ground on the walls. Dr. Perkins organized medical supplies with grim efficiency, but it was Judge Carter's arrival that provided the next shock. The judge was conscious despite his wound, and his first words were, "Marshal Garrett, I'm placing you under arrest." "What?" Garrett went for his gun, but Carter raised a hand. "Not you, Marshal, your Deputy Thompson." The judge pointed at one of Garrett's most trusted men. He's been feeding information to Pike's associates. He's the reason they knew where I'd be." Thompson tried to run, but Isoba's thrown knife caught him in the leg, dropping him. As Garrett restrained his former deputy, Thompson broke. "They promised me $50,000, more money than I'd see in 10 lifetimes. And all you had to do was betray your oath," Garrett said disgustedly. "You don't understand," Thompson babbled. They own everything, judges, politicians, newspapers. You can't win this." "Watch us," Tala said coldly. The interrogation of Thompson revealed more disturbing news. The approaching force wasn't just hired guns. It included active cavalry units from Fort Huachuca, led by Major Reynolds, one of Brackett's closest allies. "Federal troops attacking a federal fort," Morrison said. "That's treason." "Only if someone's left alive to report it," Elias pointed out. A dust cloud appeared on the southern horizon. The enemy was here. "Everybody to positions," Morrison commanded, but instead of attacking immediately, the force stopped just out of rifle range. A lone rider approached Major Reynolds himself in full uniform. "Colonel Morrison," he called, "you're harboring fugitives and murderers. Surrender them and no one else needs to die." "I'm harboring witnesses to federal crimes," Morrison called back. "You're the one committing treason, Major." "Treason?" Reynolds laughed. "I'm following orders from the territorial governor himself. You're the one who's gone rogue, Colonel, allying with Apache savages, protecting cop killers. Brackett was the criminal. Captain Brackett was a hero, murdered by Apache terrorists and their white sympathizers. That's what the history books will say anyway." "Not if we have anything to say about it," Elias shouted. Reynolds focused on him. "Ah, the famous Elias Hart. The traitor who chose Apache killers over his own kind. Your son would be ashamed." The words hit like physical blows, but before Elias could respond, Tala's rifle cracked. The shot took Reynolds's hat off, sending it spinning. "The next one goes through your skull," she called. "Leave now while you can." Reynolds retreated, but his parting words chilled them. "1 hour, Colonel. Surrender or we burn that fort to the ground with everyone in it." "He can't," Morrison said, but uncertainty colored his voice. "Attacking a fort is—" "He can and will," Judge Carter said weakly from his stretcher. "I've seen the orders he's carrying, forged but official-looking. By the time the truth comes out, we'll all be dead." "Then we fight," Naichi said simply. "My people have faced worse odds." "This isn't your fight," Morrison told him. "It became our fight when they started starving our children. We stand with you." The hour passed too quickly. As the sun reached its zenith, Reynolds's force spread out surrounding the fort. They had brought something else, artillery. 2 mountain howitzers, small but deadly accurate. "Where did they get those?" Morrison demanded. "Probably the same place they got federal troops for an illegal action," Garrett said bitterly. The first shell exploded against the fort's wall, shaking the entire structure. Then another and another. They weren't trying to breach, yet just terrorize. "Return fire," Morrison ordered. The battle erupted in earnest. Rifle fire from both sides, the Apache warriors proving especially effective from their elevated positions. But they were vastly outnumbered, and the artillery was taking its toll. "The infirmary's been hit," someone shouted. Elias and Tala ran to help, finding Dr. Perkins pulling wounded men from the rubble. Judge Carter had been thrown from his cot, but was miraculously unharmed. "We need to move the wounded to the stockade," Perkins said. "It's the most fortified building." As they carried wounded men, Isoba appeared, her face grim. "They're massing for an assault on the east wall, maybe 30 men. That's where our defenses are weakest," Morrison realized. "If they breach there—" "They won't," Running Wolf said. He'd gathered 10 Apache warriors. "We hold that wall. 10 against 30. Apache against hired guns," he corrected. "I like our odds." The assault came fast and brutal. Ladders against the walls, men climbing while others provided covering fire. Running Wolf and his warriors fought with desperate courage, but they were being overwhelmed. Then something unexpected happened. Riders appeared from the east, not Reynolds' men, but ranchers. Jim Hannity led them along with 20 others who'd suffered under Pike's corruption. "Thought you could use some help," Hannity shouted, his men opening fire on the attackers' exposed flanks. The assault wavered, then broke. Reynolds's men retreated, leaving their dead and wounded behind. "How did you know?" Elias asked Hannity. "Morales got word out before the telegraph was cut. Every honest man within riding distance is coming. Reynolds is about to find out he's not as popular as he thinks." But Reynolds had one more card to play. Under a white flag he approached again, this time dragging a prisoner, Mrs. Pike, bloodied and beaten. "Found her trying to reach Camp Apache," Reynolds announced. "Here's my new offer, Morrison. Everyone surrenders or I execute her right here for treason." "You bastard," Morrison growled. "1 minute to decide." Elias looked at Tala and Isoba. They nodded slightly. They understood what had to be done. "I'll surrender," Elias called out. "Me for her. No deal. Everyone or no one." "Then no one," Mrs. Pike shouted, surprising everyone. "Don't you dare surrender for me. My husband died for his crimes. Let me die for my redemption." Reynolds raised his pistol to her head, but he'd made a crucial mistake coming too close to the fort. Isoba had been waiting, bow drawn. Her arrow took him in the shoulder, spinning him around. His men grabbed him and Mrs. Pike retreating in disorder. "You just signed your death warrants," Reynolds screamed. But his threat was cut short by the sound of bugles, not from his force but from the north. Colonel Morrison's reinforcements from Fort Grant had arrived, led by General Crook himself, the department commander. "Stand down, Major Reynolds." Crook's voice boomed across the battlefield. "You're relieved of command and under arrest." "You can't. I have orders. Forged orders, Major. We've been investigating you and your conspirators for months." This was just the evidence we needed. The revelation stunned everyone. As Reynolds' men laid down their arms, Crook rode into the fort. "My apologies for the deception, Colonel Morrison. We needed them to expose themselves fully. Your defense here provided that opportunity." "You used us as bait," Elias said angrily. "I used a situation to expose a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of territorial government. Thanks to you, we have them all." "People died for your trap," Tala said coldly. "People were already dying. At least now their deaths mean something." Crook turned to Judge Crowdog. "Sir, I'm told you're willing to preside over these trials." "I am." "Good. And you'll have a mixed jury, as Mr. Hart suggested. It's time for a new kind of justice in this territory." As the wounded were tended and prisoners secured, Mrs. Pike approached Elias. "Thank you for being willing to trade yourself. Thank you for being strong enough to refuse it." She smiled sadly. "Edmund would have traded 100 lives for his own. Maybe that's why I stayed with him so long, to balance his selfishness with something better." The trial began 3 days later in the fort stockade, converted into a courtroom. The jury was unprecedented: 4 Apache, 4 Mexicans, 4 whites, all chosen for their integrity rather than their race. Thompson testified first, revealing the full scope of the conspiracy. Then Dr. Perkins with his medical records. Mrs. Pike provided documents that damned half the territorial government. But it was Tala's testimony that proved most powerful. Speaking in perfect English, she detailed not just the crimes, but their cost: children dead from starvation, elders frozen without blankets, entire families destroyed by preventable diseases. "You ask for justice," she concluded. "We ask only for what was already ours, the supplies meant to keep us alive. That men would steal from starving children for profit shows how far from God's path you've strayed." The verdict was unanimous: guilty on all counts. Reynolds and his conspirators would hang. Lesser players would face prison. The stolen supplies would be returned threefold to the reservations. As the trials concluded, Elias stood with the sisters outside the fort, watching the sunset. "What now?" he asked. "Now we watch to make sure the promises are kept," Tala said. Words are easy, actions are hard. And if they're not kept, Isoba smiled grimly, then we do this again and again until they learn. You could come with me, Elias offered. There are other fights, other injustices. You're asking us to leave our people, Tala asked. I'm asking you to help all people. Apache Mexican white injustice doesn't care about race. The sisters exchanged glances, communicating in that wordless way they had. Perhaps, Tala said finally, for a time, to see if this new justice is real or just another pretty lie. Nietzsche approached carrying something wrapped in buffalo hide. For you, he said to Elias, unwrapping it. It was a badge, not federal, but something new. It bore Apache Mexican and American symbols intertwined. What is this recognition? You're now a special investigator for the Territorial Justice Commission, a new organization General Crook is creating. Equal representation, equal justice. And you want me to lead it? Want you to help build it, Crook said, joining them, along with these ladies if they're willing. Will our testimony be accepted? Isoba asked pointedly. Will our investigations be respected? They will, or those who refuse will answer to me personally, Crook promised. As night fell, they stood together, Apache Mexican white, looking toward a future that seemed for the first time possible. The war against corruption wasn't over. It might never be truly over, but today they'd won more than a battle. They'd proven that justice could transcend the boundaries that divided them, and sometimes that proof was worth more than any victory. Your family would be proud, Tala told Elias quietly. He touched the badge, feeling its weight. I think they would. Mary always said, the strongest bridges are built from both sides. Then let's build bridges, Isoba said, one case at a time. The sound of horses approached Morales, with a group of journalists ready to spread the story across the territory and beyond. Ready to tell the truth? Morales asked. The truth isn't always popular, Elias warned. No, Tala agreed, but it's necessary, and we've seen what happens when it's suppressed. As they walked back into the fort to begin their interviews, Running Wolf caught up to them. There's been another theft, he reported. Government beef meant for the Chiricahua, diverted to a mining camp, the trail's still fresh. Elias looked at the sisters. They nodded. Then we ride at dawn, he said. Justice doesn't rest. Neither does injustice, Isoba observed. Then it's good we're stubborn, Elias replied. The work would never end. There would always be those who preyed on the weak, who used power for personal gain. But now there were also those willing to stand against them, not as Apache or Mexican or white, but as seekers of justice. It wasn't perfect. It might never be perfect, but it was a beginning. And beginnings, Elias had learned, were worth fighting for. The trail of stolen beef led them deep into the Dragoon Mountains, where the morning sun cast long shadows through ancient pines. Elias rode beside the sisters, his new badge heavy in his pocket, the weight of authority still unfamiliar after years of solitary ranching. Running Wolf scouted ahead while Marshal Garrett and 3 deputies followed behind, creating a formidable but still small force for what they might face. The tracks split here, Running Wolf announced, dismounting to examine the ground more closely. Main herd went east toward the mining camp, but riders went north. They're checking if they're being followed, Isoba observed. We're expected. Good, Tala said, checking her rifle. I'm tired of surprising people. Let them know justice is coming. The sound of a rifle shot echoed through the canyon and Garrett's hat flew off his head. Everyone dove for cover as more shots followed, splinters of rock flying where bullets struck. Above us, Running Wolf shouted, both sides of the canyon. They were pinned in a crossfire, at least 8 rifles targeting them from elevated positions. Elias counted muzzle flashes, his mind calculating angles and options. There weren't many. This was planned, he called to Garrett. Someone knew we were coming. Thompson wasn't the only rat. Garrett replied bitterly, returning fire. Isoba had already notched an arrow, her one good eye finding targets the rifles couldn't reach. Her first shot caught a sniper trying to reposition, sending him tumbling down the cliff face. But for everyone they dropped, two more seemed to appear. "We need to move," Tala shouted. "They'll grind us down." Elias spotted something, a narrow game trail leading up the eastern cliff. "There, but someone needs to keep them busy." "Go," Garrett said immediately. "My boys and I will hold here." "That's suicide," Elias protested. "That's the job. Now move." Elias, the sisters, and Running Wolf scrambled up the trail while Garrett's guns blazed below. The path was treacherous, barely wide enough for a man, but it led them behind the eastern ambushers. They came up behind three men so focused on the shooting below, they never heard death approaching. Running Wolf's knife took the first silently. Isoba's bow dropped the second. The third turned eyes, widening his mouth, opening to scream warning, but Tala's rifle butt crashed into his temple before he could make a sound. Now they had the high ground and the ambushers' own rifles. The tide turned quickly as they fired down into the remaining attackers' positions. Caught between Garrett below and Elias above, the ambushers broke and ran. "Let them go," Elias called as Garrett prepared to pursue. "They'll lead us to whoever's behind this." They followed at a distance, Running Wolf tracking easily. The trail led to a fortified mining camp where armed guards patrolled the perimeter. Through field glasses, Elias could see the stolen cattle in makeshift pens, already being slaughtered. "Must be 50 men down there," Garrett observed. "We need reinforcements." "Or better tactics," Tala suggested. She pointed to the wooden structures built into the hillside. "Those are powder magazines for the mining operation. One fire arrow." "You'd destroy the whole camp," Garrett protested. "There might be innocent workers." "Then we get them out first," Elias decided. "Tonight during the shift change." As darkness fell, they split up. Running Wolf and Isoba circled to the powder magazines. Garrett and his deputies positioned themselves at the main entrance. Elias and Tala descended toward the workers' quarters. The Mexican workers were housed in shanties barely fit for animals. When Elias and Tala appeared speaking softly in Spanish, the workers were terrified at first. But when Tala explained they were there about the stolen beef, meant for starving Apache children, anger replaced fear. "We know nothing," an older worker said, but his eyes said otherwise. "You know enough," Elias replied. "Who runs this operation?" "Senor Fitzgerald. He has many guns, many connections. Even the territorial governor fears him." "Not anymore," Tala said firmly. "The governor's allies are in prison or dead. Times are changing." "Help us," Elias urged. "When the trouble starts, get your people to safety. There's going to be fire." The worker's eyes widened, then he nodded slowly. "The night whistle blows in 10 minutes. Everyone will be changing shifts, moving around. Maximum confusion." "Perfect." 10 minutes later, the whistle shrieked across the camp. Workers streamed out of the mines while others headed in. In the chaos, nobody noticed shadows moving toward strategic positions. The first fire arrow struck the smaller powder magazine. The explosion lit up the night, throwing guards off their feet. Before they could recover, the second magazine went up, even larger than the first. The blast shattered windows a mile away. Panic erupted. Guards ran in every direction, some toward the fire, others away from it. In the confusion, Elias and Tala reached the main office where Fitzgerald would be. They kicked in the door to find not just Fitzgerald, a fat, sweating man in expensive clothes, but someone far more surprising. Judge Carter sat there, the same judge who'd been wounded in the attack, counting money at the desk. "Your shoulder healed remarkably fast, Judge," Elias said, his gun trained on both men. Carter's face went pale. "Hart, this isn't what it looks like." "It looks like you've been playing every side," Tala said coldly, pretending to be wounded to avoid presiding, but really working with the conspirators. "You don't understand," Carter babbled. "They threatened my family. Everyone has a family. Isoba said, appearing in the window with her bow drawn. The Apache children starving because of this stolen beef have families too. Fitzgerald reached for a hidden gun, but Elias's shot took him in the shoulder, spinning him to the floor. Don't even think about it. You're finished, Hart. Fitzgerald gasped through his pain. I own judges, senators, even generals. You think Crook is clean? He's been taking payments for years. The accusation hit like cold water. But before Elias could respond, Running Wolf entered with documents from the safe. He's lying about Crook, but look at this telegrams from Washington. They're planning to void the trial verdicts, claim procedural errors. Then we need insurance, Elias decided. He turned to Carter. You're going to write out a full confession, every detail, every name. I'll be killed, maybe, or maybe you'll live long enough to testify. Your choice, possible death or certain death. Carter's hand shook as he wrote filling pages with names, dates, amounts. The corruption went deeper than even Pike's documents had suggested, a web spanning from Washington to Mexico City. Gunfire erupted outside. Garrett's voice carried over the chaos. Hart, we've got company, looks like Fitzgerald's reinforcements. Through the window, they could see riders approaching, at least 30 men heavily armed. But something else caught Elias's eye, dust clouds from the north and east. More riders, but whose? The answer came with war cries that chilled blood. Apache warriors led by Nietzsche himself swept down from the northern hills. From the east came Mexican vaqueros, Diego Vargas at their head. The reinforcements found themselves caught between three forces. You called for help, Elias asked Running Wolf. Signal fires, the scout replied with a rare smile. Amazing how fast they spread news. The battle was brief but vicious. Fitzgerald's hired guns, caught in the open, tried to fort up in the camp buildings. But with the powder magazines gone and fires spreading, they had nowhere to hide. Within an hour, those still alive had surrendered. As dawn broke over the smoking camp, General Crook arrived with a full cavalry regiment. His face was grim as he surveyed the scene. Judge Carter, he said heavily, I'm disappointed but not surprised. We've suspected you for months. You knew. Elias was stunned. Suspected. Knowing and proving are different things. Your work here provided the proof. Crook looked at the recovered cattle already being loaded for transport to the reservation. How many more would have starved while we built our legal case? So you used us again, Tala said accusingly. No, I allowed you to do what you do best, find truth and deliver justice. The difference is important. Mrs. Pike arrived with the dawn patrol, having recovered from her ordeal. She carried a thick journal. I found more of Edmund's records hidden in our Phoenix house. This names everyone, including 3 Supreme Court justices. This is too big, Garrett said, overwhelmed. We can't fight the entire government. We don't have to, Elias realized. We just have to make it public. Let the newspapers, let the people decide. The people. Fitzgerald laughed bitterly from where he sat, shoulder bandaged. The people don't care as long as they get their beef and silver. Some people, Isoba corrected. Not all. Morales arrived with his printing press on a wagon already setting type. Every paper in the territory will have this story by noon. I've telegraphed colleagues in San Francisco, Chicago, even New York. This will be national news. You've started a war you can't win, Carter warned. They'll destroy all of you. They'll try, Elias agreed. But look around, Judge. Apache, Mexican, white, all standing together. That's never happened before. That's what they really fear, not the loss of money, but the loss of division that keeps them in power. Over the following days, the revelations shook the territory. 3 more judges were arrested. A dozen federal officials fled to Mexico. The Army launched a massive internal investigation, but more importantly, the stolen supplies flowed back to the reservations. Elias stood with the sisters at a distribution point watching Apache families receive food and blankets. that should have been theirs months ago. Children who'd been skeletal were beginning to fill out. Elders who'd been dying were recovering. "It's not enough," Tala said quietly. "It doesn't bring back the dead." "No," Elias agreed, "but it might save the living." Chief Naichi approached them. "The council has met. We've decided to support the Territorial Justice Commission permanently. Running Wolf will be our representative, and we'll honor that trust," Elias promised. "See that you do. We've believed white promises before." As Naichi walked away, Isoba touched Elias's arm. "He's right to be cautious. This victory is fragile." "All victories are. That's why we keep fighting." A rider approached at full gallop one of Garrett's deputies. "Marshal Mr. Hart, urgent news from Washington." The telegram he carried was brief but stunning. "President orders full federal investigation. Special prosecutor appointed. All territorial officials suspended pending review. Your commission granted federal authority. Signed President Hayes." "We did it," Garrett breathed. "We actually did it." "We started it," Elias corrected. "Now comes the hard part, keeping it going." Over the following weeks, the investigations expanded. The special prosecutor, a tough former Union general named Benjamin Grierson, arrived with a team of investigators. Unlike previous officials, he included Apache and Mexican representatives in every meeting. "Mr. Hart," Grierson said at their first meeting, "I understand you've been instrumental in exposing this corruption." "I had help, lots of it." "Yes, these remarkable ladies," Grierson nodded to the sisters. "I have a proposition. I need investigators. I can trust people who understand all sides of this territory. Would you consider making your commission permanent?" Elias looked at Tala and Isoba. They'd been through so much together, but this would mean a lifetime of danger, of fighting entrenched power. "What would our authority be?" Tala asked. "Full federal backing, the ability to investigate anywhere, anyone, equal standing regardless of race or gender." "That's unprecedented," Garrett observed. "So was a mixed jury. So was Apache testimony being given equal weight to white. Precedents are just things that haven't happened yet." "We'll do it," Isoba said firmly. "But on our terms. We investigate all crimes equally white, against Apache, against white Mexican, against either. True justice, not selective." "Agreed." As they signed the papers making them official federal investigators, Elias thought about how far they'd come from that morning when a bounty hunter crept onto his ranch. His wooden leg carved with Apache symbols barely hurt anymore. His shoulder scarred from bullets had healed strong, but more than physical wounds had healed. "Your family," Tala said softly beside him, seeming to read his thoughts. "They're not forgotten in this. No, they're remembered in it. Every child we save, every family we keep together, it's for them too." The sun was setting as they stood on the porch of their new office in Tucson, a building that sat symbolically between the Apache Mexican and white sections of town. Running Wolf was there along with Diego Morales, Dr. Perkins, and even Mrs. Pike, who'd become an invaluable researcher. "To justice," Garrett raised a glass of whiskey. "To justice earned, not given." Tala corrected, raising her own glass of water. "To bridges built from both sides," Elias added, remembering Mary's words. As they toasted, a young Apache boy ran up with a message. Another theft, this time medical supplies meant for Mexican farmers hit by fever. The criminals never rested. "When do we ride?" Isoba asked, already checking her weapons. "Dawn," Elias replied. "Always dawn. That's when new days begin." That night, Elias stood under the stars, no longer alone, despite being by himself. The ghosts of his wife and son felt peaceful now, not anguished. He'd found purpose in his pain, meaning in his loss. Tala appeared beside him, as silent as always. "No regrets." "None. I regret it took so much death to achieve so little change." Little change multiplied becomes great change. Your grandmother's river carving the canyon. She smiled, the expression transforming her serious face. You listened. I always listen. I don't always hear, but I always listen. Isoba joined them, and for a moment the three unlikely partners stood in comfortable silence. They'd been brought together by violence and injustice, but they'd stayed together for something greater hope. The old rancher, the educated Apache translator, and the one-eyed warrior, Isoba mused. Sounds like the beginning of a bad joke. Or a good story, Elias countered. One that ends with, and they changed everything. Nothing's ended, Tala reminded them. This is just beginning. Then let's begin well, Elias said. As they went inside to plan for tomorrow's investigation, Elias noticed something carved into their new office door, words in Apache, Spanish, and English, all saying the same thing: justice lives here. It wasn't a promise or a boast. It was a declaration of intent, a daily reminder of what they'd fought for and must continue fighting for. Because justice, real justice, wasn't a destination. It was a journey that required constant vigilance, courage, and most importantly, the willingness to see humanity in those different from yourself. The war-scarred rancher with a wooden leg had found his purpose. The Apache sisters had found their voices heard in halls of power that had always excluded them. And together they'd proved that change was possible, one case at a time, one life at a time. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new corruptions to expose, new injustices to fight. But tonight, for just this moment, they'd won something precious, proof that Apache, Mexican, and white could stand together for justice, and in doing so, create something stronger than any of them alone. The candles burned late in their office as they worked, three shadows moving against the walls, preparing for dawn and the ride toward justice that would never end, but was always worth pursuing. Outside, the desert wind carried the sound of children laughing in the Apache section of town, children who had food tonight because justice had prevailed. It was a small sound, easily missed, but to those who knew how to listen, it was the sound of the future being born. And it was good.